Welcome into the Gig'em 24/7 Sports Podcast. I am Andrew Hattersley, joined with a special guest today. Brian is not joining us. Brian is out this week. Couldn't behave, so we just decided to bring in somebody better on the podcast. So we're fortunate to bring in Sam Smith, who covers baseball for Gig'em 247 and is kind of our baseball aficionado. It's a big weekend for Texas A&M. There's kind of a little thing going on around College Station. Texas A&M is going to be hosting a regional beginning on Friday with Oral Roberts. Thanks, Sam. Thanks so much for doing this.
Hey, man, it's my pleasure. I'm a little disappointed Peroni's not here, but, we'll try to get by without him. How's that sound?
We'll try to talk to him another time. He wanted to clear a spot for baseball and for the baseball aficionados to come in. Wanted to get your thoughts because you put up a great preview earlier this week on the site. When you saw this regional come together, obviously TCU was, in a region with TCU, Louisiana, and Oral Roberts. A&M will open against Oral Roberts on Friday afternoon. What were your original thoughts like when you kind of saw this bracket come together?
Well, it's kind of interesting because, everybody watches this and they watch all the things and they're, these guys got a harder bracket or we got the hardest bracket or whatever it may be. The truth of the matter is, if you're one of the top 64 teams, you're probably going to be pretty good. And even some of the mid-majors and so forth, you're talking about some teams that can really play some baseball. And Oral Roberts is probably the best example of that of anybody. Oral Roberts is a fantastic baseball team. I mean, they won their conference championship by just basically annihilating Omaha. I mean, I think they won 21-2. And so you're talking about a team that's got some pretty strong pitchers in their rotation, and they've got a stud closer. In fact, their closer is probably the best closer in this region, maybe in most of the regions throughout college baseball. So, that's the 4 seed in A&M's region. So Aggies got their hands full. Now, that being said, there's a reason why Texas A&M is the 5 seed. A&M has done some phenomenal things, especially the second half of the season. So they deserved it. They earned that 5th seed. And, there's not a single team in college baseball right now, with the exception, I would probably say, of Tennessee, that doesn't have some warts. They've got some problems and so forth. But, TCU is a phenomenal program. They won their regular season title in the Big 12. I will tell you that their new manager, Kirk Saarloos, has done a fantastic job. I mean, he was the Big 12 Coach of the Year, and he earned it. And it's mainly because if you go and look at what they did over there, he was having to tweak the lineup almost on a daily basis because of injuries, trying to get the right rotation, and so forth. So what we saw at Texas A&M with Jim Schlossnagle, same thing was happening over at TCU. They've been shuffling the deck and doing whatever they could, and they basically caught the right teams at the right time and ended up winning the regular season title. So when you look at the region, I haven't even mentioned the Louisiana Raging Cajuns yet. And, Matt Daggs obviously has a history with A&M. He was an assistant, obviously, with Rob Childress. And then he went to Sam Houston. And Daggs is an outstanding coach. He's had some personal issues in the past that he's overcome, and he's really doing a fantastic job everywhere he goes. But his brand of baseball is really kind of interesting because it's kind of a cross between the Rob Childress world and an extremely aggressive nature of others that he's worked with. And so the Cajuns are about as aggressive a baseball team as you'll see. They're not near as deep as A&M, for instance, as far as talent, but the front half of their lineup is outstanding. And man, they've got some kids that can hurl the baseball. So, you're talking about 3 teams, not even counting A&M, 3 teams that have all won conference trophies. They've either won their tournament or they've won the regular season title in all 3 of these conferences. And so it doesn't get much better than that when it comes to putting together 1 through 4 in a region. I mean, A&M's got their hands full. It's going to be a dogfight all weekend long.
So, fans probably all this week have been kind of looking at potential matchups, and obviously the TCU A&M one's the biggest. Who do you think's the biggest challenger, or who do you think kind of could give A&M the biggest threat this weekend?
Well, to be flat honest with you, I'm worried about Oral Roberts. And the reason I say that is they've got 2 kids at the front of their rotation, and they're both outstanding. In fact, their star right now was a kid that was at University of Oklahoma and transferred over, and he is throwing lights out. And I mean, he's just an amazing talent. And when you think of, by the way, his name is Legend Smith. And Legend has basically come in and just dominated their league. And yes, I get the fact that it's a mid-major, but when it comes to baseball, you get a guy that can throw the baseball and spot his pitches and really keep balance, the batters off balance. They could beat anybody. And if you don't believe that, just wait and watch, because I mean, it's very possible. So when I look at the deal, I got to tell you, I don't think TCU is a walk-on over Louisiana. I mean, Louisiana could easily beat TCU as well. In fact, as crazy as this may sound, if you look at it, I mean, there is a chance, and I don't think it's going to happen, but there's certainly it would not be out of the realm of possibility to have Oral Roberts playing Louisiana in the winners bracket. I mean, it could seriously happen because there's that kind of talent. Now, 1 through 25, the most talented team in this regional is Texas A&M. TCU is very close to that. They've experienced some pretty significant injuries, and those people aren't back. A&M is blessed to get some of the guys back that have been hurt in the year. In fact, only Christian Curtis is really not available now for A&M. But TCU has had some challenges. But that being said, it doesn't take, you get a pitcher that's hot and he shuts everybody down and they play good defense and their offense gets going. I mean, Matt Daggs and the Raging Cajuns, what you can expect from them is basically pressure the entire time. They will play small ball. They will basically get up there, and if they get on base, they are going to run you, and they're going to get thrown out a ton, but they'll also score a bunch of runs too. And so that kind of pressure is kind of what we've seen from A&M this year with Jim Schlossnagle. Well, what Jim Schlossnagle does, Matt Daggs does on steroids when it comes to the Raging Cajuns. So, I'm predicting, and I said that in our in the little write-up that I did for 24/7. I think that A&M can win this region. But I don't want anybody going into this thinking, man, it's a cakewalk or, whatever. I do not believe that TCU is the TCU teams of the past few years. They certainly have probably taken a step down. In fact, I would say that in the Big 12, they had 5 teams that were all about the same. Each one of them had their warts. Each one of them had their challenges, and it's when you caught them. And in TCU's case, they caught the right teams at the right time and won the regular season. But as soon as they got into their tournament, they go 1-2 and they're out. And if you really want to know the truth, right now, I would tell you the University of Oklahoma is the hottest team coming out of the Big 12, and they got a very good chance of winning the region that they're in as a 2 seed. So, it's really a matter of set aside everything that's happened in the past. Season's over. This is a new world. Everybody is 0-0, and there are 4 outstanding teams coming to College Station.
I think the other notable part that Jim Schlossnagle brought up when you talk about Oral Roberts, they've got a ton of NCAA tournament experience. This moment's not going to be too big for them. How do you think Texas A&M is going to handle this moment? It's obviously going to probably be a pretty great crowd out this weekend. How do you think they handle this moment? And, are there going to be maybe some jitters for guys? I know they've got some guys with postseason experience and coaches that have postseason experience. How do you think they handle this moment?
Yeah, I would tell you one mention on ORU. They have 3 kids that transferred, so not just Legend Smith. They have a kid that transferred from Arkansas. They also have a kid that transferred from Sam Houston. That they're outstanding players, and they've been in this position before. So even though it's Oral Roberts, they've got a lot of kids that had Division I offers, played other places to come there. So I mean, these are very talented kids. When it comes to A&M, I will tell you, I think it's all going to start with Micah Dallas. We need Micah Dallas to come out on the mound and do exactly what he did in Hoover. And really get out there and command his pitches. And what we mean by that is not getting out there and dominating and striking out the side or whatever it may be. That's not what Micah Dallas does. But he's got to have that downward movement on his fastball, because if he gets that ball up and he starts throwing that ball flat, we're in big time trouble, because there is not a team in this region that can't take this baseball deep and take it deep often. And so we love A&M's offense. Well, I would almost describe Oral Roberts as almost the same type of offense. And the truth of the matter is Louisiana is even better, and TCU is fantastic. TCU, what I would say about TCU is they've got a strong front end of the lineup. I think their back end lineup is not as strong. They're not as deep. Like A&M is 1 through 9. Good luck to them. I mean, they are solid. Yeah. But TCU is very strong, 1 through 5. But I would say the other 2 teams are pretty doggone strong across the board. I mean, the Raging Cajuns, the first 5 in that batting order, they've got a kid. In fact, his name is Carson Rocafort. And Carson Rocafort reminds me of Dylan Rock. In fact, I would almost tell you that you could put an A&M uniform on him and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference in the way they play. He's that good. And so as much as we love Dylan Rock, and Dylan Rock is, I mean, he is must-see TV, right? Well, This Rocafort kid's the same way. So Micah Dallas has got to do his thing. At the same time, though, we don't have room or time for A&M to start making a bunch of stupid errors like they did at Hoover. You know, those games where we let Alabama get up on us early and make 4 errors in the first 2 innings, things like that. That cannot happen because our pitching staff needs the defense to back them up. You know, Detmer came out and got a lot of ground balls, and we weren't able to turn the double plays. We weren't able to make the outs that we needed to, and all of a sudden, Detmer's out of there in 2 innings. We cannot have that happen. We need to give our bullpen a break. We need Micah Dallas to go 5 or 6. We need Detmer to go 6 or 7. We need that to happen so that when we turn the ball over to a Palish or a Cortez or a Menifee, that these guys are only being used a few innings, and then we're put them back in the bullpen and let them rest, because got to keep in mind you got to win 3 games in the region, and if you happen to lose, then you got to win more than that. And no team is going to be able to survive in this region if they're going to have to play 4 or 5 games. No one has the pitching to be able to make that happen.
Yeah, I was going to lead into my next question. How do you see Texas A&M lining up their pitching staff? Because Jim Schlossnagle, after the selection show on Sunday, kind of mentioned it, that, pitching is kind of being kind of a jumbling act this last part of the season. They played really well, but far from consistent. I guess, how do you see, obviously Nathan Detmer probably is the guy you go with right off the bat, but how do you see it kind of playing out?
Yeah, I don't think we start Detmer. I think we're going to start Micah Dallas in the first game against ORU. And the only reason I say that is I think we would probably hold Detmer back for the winner's bracket game if we can get to the winner's bracket. But before I really even get into starting strategy, this is what I love about Jim Schlossnagle. Jim Schlossnagle and Chuck Box. And by the way, those of you that don't know Chuck Box, because nobody talks about Chuck Box is a freaking superstar at A&M. He is the guy that behind the scenes, he's the player development guy. He does all the analysis. He puts together the training schedule, the practice schedule, all that. And he's also leading the team that is studying the teams that we're playing. And I can guarantee you that in the last 48 hours, Schlossnagle and staff have been watching tape, developing strategy for every team, every scenario, every time. That is not something that happened at A&M before this. I'm just telling you flat out. Yes, there was a lot of research put in, and yes, they tried to prepare, but nothing at the level that you see now. There is nothing that's going to happen on that baseball field in this region that is going to catch Jim Schlossnagle or this staff off guard. Now, that being said, why do they do all that? Well, they do it because they're developing their strategy. And so the starting lineup for Oral Roberts is designed to beat Oral Roberts. At the same time, they're also thinking about, okay, if we do this, then what do we have to set up for the next game and the next game? So they have thought about every scenario and so forth. So that all being said, we're still waiting to see, obviously, they're going to announce it, but I'm guessing that we're going to probably go with Micah Dallas and start him, and then have Detmer come in in the winner's bracket if we can make it to the winner's bracket. If not, we're obviously going to be playing for our life, and you want Detmer to be the guy doing that. And so I see that as kind of the first 2. So then if you make it to game 3 and you're in the winner's bracket, you're playing for the regional championship, most likely then we start looking at that, and it's kind of a bullpen by committee. They very easily could go with Prager. We've gone with Prager before, but it'd be an extremely short leash and so forth. But keep in mind, you lose that game, it's double elimination. The team that you're playing would have to beat you twice if you're coming out of the winner's bracket. And so you got a little flexibility, but that's why I say there's a lot of strategy that goes into college baseball that I don't think people really even recognize or understand. And in fact, when we were talking about Hoover, there were a lot of people really upset that, why aren't we trying to win the championship and all that? Well, I get it, and the trophies are nice, and Schlossnagle is going to do everything he can to win a trophy. There's no doubt about it. But he was also keeping in the back of his mind, we got to be ready to set up for the tournament. And so when Detmer was in a situation where the defense let him down, he had a very significant blister on the basically the ball of his foot, and it was in recovery stage. Well, Detmer did a pretty good job. Defense kind of messed him over, and he pulled him out. And truthfully, I'm glad that he did. Now, yeah, it was an ugly game, but we ended up coming back and doing something with it. But the key thing is Detmer now has had a full week's rest. He's fully healthy. He's ready to go. So that's why I say these guys are thinking of every scenario and so forth. And the one thing I can guarantee A&M fans is that we will not be out-coached and we will not be out-strategized through this entire process. Now, that doesn't mean they might not make a decision that doesn't work, but it won't be because there's been a lot of thought and input put into coming up with whatever the decision is, which as an A&M baseball fan, I couldn't be more thrilled because I feel like we have been outcoached in the past, and that's not going to happen anymore.
Yeah, to your point, he talked about that on Sunday that they were going to go home and enjoy the day and then dive in with 72 hours of film the next couple of days. So you can guarantee they're going to be prepared. And one of the big storylines is A&M obviously earning a national seed and what they were able to do in Hoover, not only in Hoover but in over the course of SEC play as well. What do you think it says about this coaching staff? And was this something first 5 weeks of the season that you thought was even kind of a possibility, or what did you think was the ceiling for this team then, and where do you think that ceiling is kind of now?
I have fun. I always go back and look at my preseason preview just
Yeah.
to see, okay, what was right, what was wrong, and so forth, because you're never going to get everything right because we just don't know. Coming out of fall ball this year was quite interesting. What I told everyone, I think you and I have even talked about it, was that we had a lot of talent, but it's talent that never played together. It was being assembled from all over the country, a brand new staff, trying to learn everything, trying to put things in place. And oh, by the way, they're also trying to figure out what upgrades they're going to do. And so there's a lot of stuff going on. So Schlossnagle has been quite the busy man, even in off season, and then get into this. And so in the spring, as we were looking at spring ball, and I write that preview, by the way, before spring ball is over. So I was kind of estimating on what we saw out of fall, what we were seeing very early in the spring. And the kicker of it is these kids were exactly what we thought they were. They were extremely talented, but they had to gel. And that first few weeks of the season, they weren't gelling very well. And it just wasn't coming together. I mean, you lose a series to Penn. By the way, Penn was one of the first teams out. They nearly made the tournament. In fact, if they wouldn't have screwed up some things, they would have made the tournament. So they ended up being a pretty good baseball team, but that's no excuse. A&M should have still beaten them. But at that particular time, they were still trying to figure out what we were doing and so forth. But if you look at the progression, when that LSU series started, we went into Baton Rouge, and those guys were ready to play. And they went in, and they not only did they win 2, they should have won 3. They should have swept the series. But that really sparked this team to really kind of kick it into gear and go. And the talent started to show itself. Michael Early's work in the batting cages, I don't even know how to actually describe it. I mean, the guy's fantastic. But what he's done is he's solidified a very simple process for all of our hitters. So instead of trying to go in and change this guy up or whatever, they just worked on some key things, getting those bats level, making good contact. But the one thing that you'll notice on A&M baseball today that really was not happening early in the season is we are working the counts. We are not giving them free stuff. And if you heard Schlossnagle's press conference after being in Hoover, that was one of the areas he got a little frustrated early on because we were going up and swinging at the first pitch and we'd never even seen the pitcher and all that. Well, that is Jim Schlossnagle to a T. That is Michael Early to a T. We are going to make, I don't care how good your pitcher is, we're going to make him work his tail off to throw strikes, and we're not just going to give him a bunch of freebies. And so, they may strike our guy out, but it may be on a 3-2 count, or we may basically sit there and file off and, throw 9-10 pitches at a batter. That pays dividends. And say that happens in the first inning. By the 4th or 5th inning, they're up there in the 90-100 pitch count, and they got to be pulled. Well, you don't think that makes a difference? Let's just talk about A&M. What would happen if Nathan Detmer basically threw 100 pitches in the first 3 innings? Well, then we got to go to our bullpen. Look at the pressure that would put on A&M's bullpen. Well, that's what we are doing to every other opponent out there is they are working that count. And that is such a huge deal because what ends up happening is you get a better pitch and then you're able to drive the baseball. So A&M ended up having the highest batting average in the SEC, even better than Tennessee. And that was because of the thought process, the strategy that Michael Early and Jim Schlossnagle put in place. So it's fun to watch. I enjoy the strategy behind it because at the end of the day, it's not rocket science, but man, a lot of people didn't think of it.
Yeah, no doubt. It's been one of the more impressive stories just to see how it's all played out. And going back to the regional for a second, obviously one of the big storylines have to touch on, and I feel like Jim Schlossnagle just got question after question about this, is TCU being in the region. And how much of a storyline do you think that's actually going to be if they actually end up playing? Or once you get on the field, is it just kind of time to go to work, and will it even have much of an effect on players?
Well, let's just shoot straight. TCU really wants to beat Jim Schlossnagle, and Jim Schlossnagle will probably be pretty happy to beat TCU. That's a fact. Neither one of them are going to say it, but that's really the truth. At the end of the day, though, baseball is baseball. You want to go out there and win. They want to advance out of the region. They want to go to the College World Series. Now, I can tell you, having an opportunity to talk to Coach Schlossnagle quite a bit, I can tell you the man has such a high regard for TCU. Everything that was there, he's very appreciative. In fact, he's just that kind of guy. He has appreciation for Tulane and UNLV. I mean, he is a baseball guy. He lives, eats, drinks, sleeps, loves baseball. So he loves TCU. He loves the time that he spent there. He loves a lot of those kids that played for him, that he helped recruit, and so forth. So no doubt about it. So he's not enjoying the fact that he's got to go up against them, but he knew that was going to happen. That's just what happens. They call these regionals. Well, there's a reason they're called regionals, is because the southern part, Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, we got a lot of great baseball in this area. And the way the NCAA tournament is designed is if you're in a conference, you can't go to another conference member's regional. So if LSU and A&M are both hosts, or if LSU is a host, A&M can't play in that regional. They just don't do that. And so all these teams in the Big 12, all these teams in the Sun Belt, I mean, think about it. We had Texas State, Texas, TCU, Texas Tech, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, LSU, the Raging Cage. You got all these teams all in this region. So it was guaranteed somebody was coming. Now, we all know that, I think Coach Schlossnagle called it God. God and the NCAA were at work, but there was no doubt in mind that if they could put up matchup where they're going to get TCU to come to A&M and play Schlossnagle, that's what they're going to do. And by the way, our television right now on Friday is going to be ESPN Plus, because they're not going to show these on national broadcast. But if the teams that I think are going to win the first day, I'd say the odds are pretty good that TBD will be on a national broadcast on one of the ESPN channels somewhere, because they're going to want to hype it up, that Schlossnagle against TCU and all this kind of stuff. Now, that all being said, these are all great kids. They all played against each other growing up. Most of them played each other in Texas or in this region. So they all know each other. They all know the coach. And as soon as the first pitch is thrown, it doesn't matter who's coaching on the other side. All it matters is, can I get on base and can I score runs? Can I get this guy out? Whatever it may be. And so I do think it's going to be fun for the fans in the stands. And in fact, I got to tell you, I kind of laughed, Andrew, because when the coaching search was out there, I caught a lot of flack from my friends over at TCU, because they were accusing me like, who is that guy? He knows nothing. Well, I found out your coach was leaving long before you guys did, but it happens. But there's a lot of animosity there. And I know the Horned Frog crowd is going to come down from Fort Worth, and they're going to be talking smack, and the A&M crowd's going to be doing this. And all I got to say is both of those fan bases, be really careful, because the Raging Cajuns and those guys from Oral Roberts are going to do everything they can to upset both of you. So it's going to be a lot of fun with that. So, yeah, it's going to be fun, and we're going to have a good time in the stands talking about it. But when it's all said and done, it's time to play baseball.
Yeah, they should have known better than to question you on that. They should have known. They should have known what they were dealing with and all that. So
well, and I have to tell you, they don't know. They obviously don't know me over there, but it was pretty funny, because I actually have some very good friends that are in the Hall of Fame at TCU, played baseball there. I'm very close to them and everything. So, yeah, I know that program really well. And I also have a tremendous amount of respect for that program. When Jim was over there, he's a phenomenal program, what he's done. The guys that he left there, the team that's in place now, they're outstanding. They do a great job. And so it's a fantastic program, and it's one that is formidable. And so when I sit there and talk about, I think this team can do this or that, I mean, I have a tremendous amount of respect for all four of these teams, but I certainly have a lot of respect for TCU.
No doubt. They've built something. They've been in this spot before, and so it's going to be fascinating to watch this weekend. There's going to be no shortage of storylines. We'll obviously have it covered over on Gig'em 247. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to take a little zoom out and look at the bracket overall, look at who Texas A&M would face in the Super Regional if they were, or could face in the Super Regional if they were to get there. It's another big takeaways. We'll be right back after a quick break. Welcome back to the Gig'em 24/7 Sports Podcast. Again, joined by Sam Smith, who is our baseball aficionado.
Andrew, I got to ask before we keep going. Now, during this break time, does Peroni really able to run, get a snack, and get back in that time?
He sure can. He sure can.
do.
He's that quick. You know,
The guy's a legend.
he did that couch to 5K, and you know he that got him all in. You know, he's got the football genes in him too. You know, they got the football runs through that family. You know, he's a transcendent talent, to put it mildly. So he certainly can make it. So Sam, looking at the super regional, obviously if A&M is to get there, what were your big takeaways and of what that matchup would be with Louisville and obviously Southeast Missouri, Michigan, and Oregon are in that bracket as well?
Well, I can tell you there's 3 teams in that region that can win that region. If you look at Michigan and Oregon, they are rock solid. Michigan is not too long removed from getting to the College World Series championship series, and so they certainly have a lot of potential. I do think Louisville playing at home is going to give them a distinct advantage, but any of those 3 teams coming in that region is going to be formidable. The great news for A&M is if A&M can get through the College Station Regional, they got to come to College Station, which is really, that's why you want those national seeds. But I can tell you they play some serious baseball. They also hit the baseball hard, very similar to A&M's offense. And so you're going to see a lot of offense put up, and you're going to see a lot of pitching being challenged if you get to that super regional, if it's A&M or even if it was TCU. That's going to be a really competitive super regional regardless of what team advances.
For them, are there any strengths or weaknesses that you kind of see when you look at maybe Louisville or any of the others that you might see coming out of that bracket?
I think the pitching in Louisville is outstanding, and that's the thing I would probably tell you with them is they've historically always had good pitching that throw strikes, they pound that strike zone, and they're going to make you earn it. And I think that is certainly the challenge. The challenge for a team facing them is going to be to get those starters out as soon as possible, get to their bullpen. Bullpen's not bad, but I'll be honest with you, right now in college baseball as a whole, all the Aggie fans are all talking about, man, our pitching. Well, there's 63 other teams, well, actually 62 other teams that are saying the exact same thing. They got one really good starter, they got a really good closer, whatever it may be. The only team that I have seen throughout the year that really on paper is good top to bottom is Tennessee. And I hats off to them. They got a very strong rotation, and they've got a very strong bullpen and all that. And oh, by the way, the number 1 national seed has not won the championship in a long, long time. So something can happen. You just never know what's going to happen. But on paper, Tennessee's the team to beat across the board. When you look at Louisville and Michigan, they're a bunch of ballers. They get out there and they throw the ball hard. They don't have any exceptional major power. I mean, you're not going to see a guy that's throwing 98 miles an hour and basically is unhittable, but you're going to find a lot of guys that throw, upper 80s, low 90s that can place the ball perfectly. It's almost like the good old days watching the Atlanta Braves and, the type of rotations that you see. Those guys, when they were rock solid, they were throwing the baseball, not hard, but they were throwing for strikes. And that's what I would tell you that Michigan and Louisville are kind of known for. Now, Oregon's a little different. They come out of the Pac-12. They play a little bit different type of baseball, but they've got good pitching, and they were very aggressive on offense. And so all 3 of those teams will certainly give whoever comes out of the College Station Regional a real challenge.
And looking at just the other the rest of the bracket, what did you make of the NC State deal? Did you feel like they were a deserving team? And were there any other kind of snubs or teams you felt like deserve to be in that aren't?
Well, I would say NC State got screwed. That's just the best way I can sum it up. They truly did. And I will tell you that I have to believe, and I don't know this is just my speculation, but I think some of the comments and things that were made after the debacle that occurred in the College World Series last year, their coach was pretty tough on the NCAA and so forth. And I just can't believe that didn't also play a part in it. And that's a shame. They certainly deserve to be there. They've got some players that the national college baseball scene needs to see, and they had earned a spot. And so it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. The wisdom that's out there is that if they would have given NC State a spot, it would have taken a spot away from the SEC. And they were thinking that the committee was looking at it saying, okay, we're going to put 9 teams from the SEC and 9 teams from the ACC. Well, I'm an SEC guy, but I got to tell you, North Carolina State deserved to be in before Ole Miss. They did. And Ole Miss has got a great team. And truthfully, I actually think Ole Miss can win their region. I really do believe that. But they did not earn their place. And I was shocked that they actually got in over someone like NC State. A couple of other things that I thought were really egregious was really Oklahoma. I'm not a big Oklahoma fan, but Oklahoma basically came on and was hot as a pistol. And yet they announced the regional locations before the Big 12 championship was even done. Now, who's to blame for that? I don't know, but I can tell you this, that it really messed over Oklahoma, because I think if the committee would have known that Oklahoma was going to win the tournament and all that, I can't believe that they would not have at least gotten a regional seed. Not necessarily saying a national seed, but they certainly deserved a regional seed over the likes of Texas. Now, I'm going to probably tick off all of our Horn fans, but I really don't care because, I'm not a big fan. But Texas did not deserve a number 9 seed. That is an absolute joke. It's an atrocity. They might have been on the bubble to get 16, but they were in that 15, 16 range. They certainly weren't a 9 seed. But where the really egregious thing occurred is Oklahoma State is a national seed coming out of that conference. Now, we can debate whether Oklahoma State deserved it or Oklahoma or whatever, but whatever the case, they picked Oklahoma State. But when you look at the region, Oklahoma State got Arkansas as their number 2, and Texas got Louisiana Tech. Now, Louisiana Tech's a great program. They've had a lot of success, but Louisiana Tech is not Arkansas, a team that finished one win outside of the SEC West Championship that basically has been a dominant program and all that. So I guess the question I would ask to the committee is, what did Oklahoma State do to deserve a national seed? And then why in the world would you basically put Arkansas as their number 2 and yet give Texas a number 9 seed and give them Louisiana Tech as their number 2? There's no way on earth you can justify that. And so there's no doubt there's something going on behind the scenes. And so I thought that was an atrocity. And that's nothing personal against Texas or Louisiana Tech or anybody like that. It's just the thought process behind seeding is Tennessee was the number 1 team in the country. They earned that seed. They should play the number 16 region team, whoever that host is, and the weakest of the 16. They deserve it. They earned that. And so that's the way it should be. So 2 should be playing 15 and 3 should be playing 14 and so forth. Well, I don't think that happened with Oklahoma State and Texas. And so if I'm Oklahoma State, I'm probably pretty ticked about it. Now, at the end of the day, you got to win your region. It doesn't matter. All 64 teams are great. And truthfully, Texas is going to have their hands full, and they may do well. They may not. Who knows what's going to happen. But, some of the other regions, I had people texting me while this was going down, and I had someone say, man, A&M really got screwed. They got a really hard region. And, look at some of their things. Well, I actually think A&M's fine. I mean, I thought the TCU thing was a little contrived, but whatever. Somebody had to come here. If it wasn't TCU, it was going to be Tech, or it was going to be somebody like that. It could have been Oklahoma. And truthfully, I would much rather have TCU than Oklahoma right now based off the way they're playing. But at the end of the day, teams like Florida, Florida barely got in. They made the run at Hoover, and because of that run, they got a hosting spot. So congratulations. You guys did. You earned that spot and jumped in. Their region's brutal. I mean, they've got an unbelievable region. In fact, I was going to kind of take a look at it. So their number 2 seed is Oklahoma, who I've just talked about. And then they've got Liberty, who's had a phenomenal season. So Liberty, Oklahoma, and Florida. Central Michigan's the other team in the region. But there's a very good chance Florida's going to have a hard time coming out of their region, even at home. And those of you that follow college baseball, last year, remember, Florida hosted at home. They were a higher-ranked team and got blown out by South Florida and didn't even make the Supers. And so there's a history here of these kind of things happening. So regardless of whether you think you got a good draw or a bad draw or whatever, you got to go play the game, and that's exactly what's going to have to happen.
No doubt. Now, who do you kind of feel like, and who do you kind of feel like is the favorite to win it all? Is the obvious choice Tennessee? And also, apologies, I was keeping up on the bracket there, and then I got a little page ad come across.
No problem.
I was following along with you on the bracket, but who do you kind of feel like is the favorite to come out of it?
So you have to say Tennessee is the favorite because they by far have been the best team in the country, top to bottom, throughout the regular season and into the tournaments and so forth. They are loaded. They've got a fantastic rotation. They've got a good bullpen, and they can swing the sticks. There's no question about it. They are a formidable opponent. But as I mentioned before, the top-seeded team almost never wins. Yeah. And so it's kind of the position that you want to be in, but you really don't want to be in. So I think they got their hands full. And so when you start looking at the way the brackets kind of lay out and all that, I mean, I don't think there's any question that Tennessee's got a pretty good track to get to the College World Series. if they do and hold to form, it's going to be very hard to beat Tennessee. There's no doubt.
Yeah.
That being said, they've got a challenge. I don't think they're going to worry. And, when I look at their bracket, they're not going to have any problem in the regional, which, by the way, they earned. The Campbell Camels, if you're not familiar with Campbell, they're an outstanding baseball team, and they've really done well, and they certainly earned their spot. And they're 40-17 a year and can really play a great baseball. And they can actually give Tennessee a game. Can they beat them twice? Probably not. And so that's why I say it's very difficult to beat a team like Tennessee like that. But when you get into the regional, the Georgia Southern Regional is the one that's paired up with Tennessee. And so if you hear that and you think, well, if Georgia Southern played Tennessee, Tennessee would be the heavy favorite. Well, absolutely. Georgia Southern is a phenomenal story. I think it's awesome that they got to host, and that's great. But, congratulations. We're going to send number 2 Notre Dame and number 3 Texas Tech into your region. Well, that's a heck of a good region. And truthfully, when you look at it, I think the battle is between Tech and Notre Dame, who's actually going to get the leg up in there. And, Georgia Southern is going to probably win the first game over UNC Greensboro, but then they're going to play the winner of the Tech Notre Dame game. And whoever won that game, I think, is going to have an inside track to winning that region. So if that happens, and that holds true to form, playing Texas Tech or Notre Dame in the Supers is going to give Tennessee a challenge. I don't think that they're going to beat them, but they certainly will be a challenge. And so it's not a cakewalk for Tennessee in any way whatsoever. But as you look at some of the other teams, like I said before, I think Oklahoma is a team that is on fire right now. I think Texas A&M is a team that's on fire. And, it's funny, in my preseason preview, I told everybody, everybody kept asking me, well, what do you think? I think we make the tournament. And that anything after that was plus. That was icing on the cake. Well, they've outperformed even that. I mean, what they did in winning the West, and all that's phenomenal. But A&M is on a roll. And the only thing that's holding A&M up is we don't have a true rotation. We don't have necessarily the most reliable bullpen, and our defense has been a little suspect. But, I look at all these other teams, and other than Tennessee, they're all just in the same boat. Yeah. And the momentum that the Aggies have is phenomenal. And so A&M gets on a roll here. A&M could certainly roll through the region to the Supers and give Tennessee a battle. Now, I guess I ought to bring up the bad news, Andrew. I talked to you earlier. Yep. It's very possible that if we get to the College World Series and certain teams fall in line, it's possible that Tennessee, A&M, Texas, Virginia or East Carolina, whoever wins that area, Louisville's obviously in our bracket, but Florida, we're all on the same side of the bracket. And so you get to College World Series, we're going to be on the same side with Tennessee. So A&M is going to have to beat Tennessee to get to the College World Series. Now, A&M is going to have to beat Texas, or Texas is going to have to beat A&M, or Texas is going to have to beat Tennessee. We're on that side of the bracket. So looking far out, guys, just so you know, you get through the regional and somehow you get through the Super, you're going to end up getting on that side of the bracket, and you're going to have to fight hard to get over the perennial favorite to be able to make it to the College World Series championship series. So it's going to be a lot of fun to kind of watch. Now on the other side of the bracket, though, Stanford and Oregon State are probably the 2 teams that people talk the most about. But there's a lot of really solid teams over there that I think can give them a good run. I still think Ole Miss has a chance in the Miami bracket, even though they're the 3 seed over there. You look at Miami and Ole Miss and Arizona; they're all right there together. I think Arizona is a little bit more of a smoke and mirrors. People are going to give them a lot of credit because they did really well last year. But Nate Yeske's not your pitching coach anymore. He's at A&M. Your head coach is over at LSU now. And so I do think that Ole Miss and Miami are going to try to end up battling that out, but we shall see. If Ole Miss gets hot, talent-wise, they're as good or better than Miami. And so it'll be interesting to see how it happens. Miami's the home team, but anything's possible. The other team I'd kind of keep an eye out for is LSU. And I mentioned that because what they did for Texas, they also did for doggone LSU. And you can't tell me that this wasn't a planned thing. So Southern Miss, who is an absolute outstanding program, gets to host a region, and they award them for that by putting LSU as the number 2 team in their bracket. So LSU gets to make a 2-hour drive up north to Hattiesburg, and they're the number 2 seed in the Southern Miss bracket. And so that was not doing Southern Miss any favors, because you and I both know everybody that lives in Baton Rouge is coming to Southern Miss this weekend.
Yep, absolutely. And anything can happen once you get in the tournament when you look at Ole Miss. And yeah, you're right. I mean, there's going to be a whole lot of LSU fans making their way to Hattiesburg. Switching gears a little bit, because it's going to be interesting to see how this kind of plays out. I know they can't really do a whole lot since it's the NCAA tournament. A&M's going to have a whole lot of visitors on campus this weekend. Official visitors: Chase Basantis, Jaden Rashada, Miles McVeigh, Sadir Mitchell, Eugene Wilson, and Jeremiah Love is the latest to lock in an official visit. Jordan Johnson-Rubel, Xavier McLeod, Ethan Utley, and Tusilia Kana are some of the guys that are also coming in on unofficial visits over the next couple of days. From your perspective as an A&M fan, what do you make of just like what A&M's been able to do and kind of captivate the, kind of what Jimbo Fisher's been able to do and build the momentum around College Station and just the buzz? And I know you've been following recruiting and football for a long time. Just
Sure.
What do you make of it?
Well, I can tell you there was an old saying that A&M was the sleeping giant. Well, they've awakened the sleeping giant. Jimbo is pissed, and Jimbo is going to do everything he can to get the best players, the best people here to go out there and start to take over college football. Same is happening in baseball. You're seeing Buzz start to do the same thing in basketball, in golf. You name it, you pick it, they're doing it. And obviously, I'm one of those guys that follows all of it. But what I will tell you is, what better experience for a recruit, whether it's a football recruit or a golf recruit or whatever, other than Kyle Field, which can't do in the spring, other than maybe the spring game.
Yeah.
What better experience would be to have all these kids coming to the campus for visits? And, oh, by the way, let's take you over there to Bluebell for a few minutes and just show you what the 12th man can do, because there's nothing more fun. And now you're talking to the baseball guy, right? I love Kyle Field, love it. I think it's awesome. There's nothing better. But I got to tell you, watching Bluebell Park when it's rocking and you got a good game going against a TCU or whatever, they will not forget that experience. And it'll be an experience that's going to help our recruiting in football and wherever else. And so I just think that, somebody made a comment on the board a while back, and they make this comment regularly, so I'm not just pointing out one person, but someone made a comment that the only thing that matters is football, baseball, and basketball. Everything else doesn't matter. Well, I could not disagree with them more, because at the end of the day, it's the brand. That A&M logo, that A&M brand represents excellence in anything that we decide to do. And so if A&M is going to choose to compete in tiddlywinks, by dog it, we need to have the best coach, the best team, and whatever. We're going to go out there and kick somebody's tail. And that's exactly the way this administration is now looking at it. And it starts with Jimbo Fisher, and it goes to Buzz, it goes to Jim Schlossnagle, it goes to our women's golf coach. I mean, I got to tell you what the women's golf program did last week. I mean, let me tell you, I'm so excited to watch them, because, I mean, they did something that was impossible, and they almost won the national dang championship. I mean, it was impressive to make it to the semifinals. So the point of it is I think time has changed. There has been a changing of the tide, if we want to say. But at the end of the day, if A&M chooses to compete, whether it be academics, whether it be research, whether it be in athletics, we're all in. And that's exactly what is happening now. And that's exactly what our athletic program is doing. That's what our coaches are doing. And, oh, by the way, if you're a coach at A&M and you're just kind of, treading water, you're not long for the world, because I don't think that's going to cut it anymore. It used to be, okay, you're a good guy, oh, we'll let you hang around. Well, you know what? We've seen that if you don't do that and you get the right people with the right attitude to get out there on the recruiting trail and do what they need to do, we can basically win anything we want to win. And that's exactly what A&M wants to do today.
No doubt. I mean, to your point on the women's golf team, the future's bright there, and kudos to Gerard Chadwell and what he's done. That whole team's pretty much back next year.
Well, it's the entire team. But did you know? I don't know if people realize that, but the team that played, the 5 young ladies that actually represented A&M in the regionals and then at the nationals, there was only one of those kids that was actually on the team this time last year.
Crazy.
He went and recruited those kids through the transfer portal. Had one that was a freshman that came in from France, but the rest of them were recruited from other programs. And so that's what the coach needs to do. And, oh, by the way, I don't know if you guys know this, but Chadwell came home with the girls, and the very next day got on a plane and went back, because he's recruiting in Arizona right now, recruiting for 24, 25, 26 teams. So that's what it's all about. There's no more of this hoping they come to you or just kind of going around the neighborhood and checking out who you got. He's going out and finding the very best, because in order to compete at that level, you got to do it. And I got to tell you, Stanford was loaded in the women's. I mean, if Stanford lost, I mean, to be honest with you, that would have been a debacle. I mean, I can't imagine what that coach would have gone through. That was as good as a women's golf team ever assembled. But the fact that A&M was in the conversation in the top 4, and by the way, I don't know if people know this too, they qualified for the Eastlake Cup, and I mentioned that on the board. But that is a pretty neat deal. Come October, Golf Channel basically does this, and only the top 4 team in men and top 4 teams in women compete in the Eastlake Cup, and it's like a really exclusive deal. And so this fall, when we're not watching Aggies playing football, we're going to actually have the A&M women's golf team on the Golf Channel national television with Stanford and Oregon and Auburn. Yeah. And so it'll be a lot of fun to watch.
And you mentioned that freshman from France. She had some pretty big putts down the stretch, and she was kind of in a really big spot on the 19th hole, going against a player that had quite a bit of experience. I got to say, watching that though, if I was A&M, just watching the Oregon and tremendous team and all, and kudos to them for getting on, I would not have given them a single putt the rest of the way. Once I kind of got through the first 5 or 6 holes and saw that they were having a putt, 2-putt 6-footers to win holes and all that, I wouldn't have given them a single putt the rest of the way. I would have said, we can play this game, but it goes both ways. And it was just kind of, as kind of a golf guy who watches a lot of golf, there's kind of an unwritten rule that, if it's 2 feet away or it's a 6-footer to win a hole with the 2 putts, you kind of give that putt and just say, let's go on to the next hole. And so
I think you probably, well, you probably know this, but I played competitively through college and played a lot as an amateur and stuff, had some good success. So I'm a big golfer too. And I got to tell you, the number of match play events, I mean, you use that to your advantage. I've been in some pretty strategic matches where I wouldn't give a guy a 1-foot putt. And I did it mainly just to piss him off. I knew he was going to make it, but it didn't matter because you get in their head, and guess what? Next hole he's mad at you, and then he makes a mistake. So you use that to your advantage, and that's exactly what needs to be done. There's no give and take, whatever. And early on, it's a 1-footer, fine, whatever. But when you get down to, like you were saying, A&M did not deserve to be in the top 4 on paper. I mean, our best player was not even close ranked to their worst player, but the girls overachieved and did amazing things. So when you're in that environment, I'm with you. You got to do whatever you can to put whatever pressure on them as you can, but you need to be strategic about it. Yeah. But that's what you got to do. Now, I got to tell you, sometimes you're just being too nice, and those kind of things happen. And you probably saw a lot of that, and that's what you were talking about. But you'll see it. You'll see in some of the match play, especially in Ryder Cup and President's Cup and all that. The Europeans were experts at getting in your head and not giving you a putt or whatever it needs, whatever it takes to kind of get in your head to kind of get you rattled. That's what you need to do. And I think the ladies will learn that as they go. Jared is a phenomenal coach. He obviously has been around. His wife is about as good as they come. She's the Solheim captain this time, so I'm sure
she's good. She's pretty good.
Yeah, I'd say she's more than average. Yeah, exactly. But anyway, I'm sure she's going to rub off on them as well, and she's tough as nails too. And so I think A&M has learned a lot. They were kind of Cinderella at the ball this time, but they'll be locked and loaded because that whole team is coming back. We're losing some seniors that have been with us a while. They're good players, but he's got a phenomenal recruiting class coming in. We've got 2 of the top players in the state of Texas coming to that team. And it'll be interesting to see what happens on the men's side. I was really disappointed. I think you saw in my write-ups on the men's side, I was really disappointed. There is no excuse for the A&M men not to compete. They were certainly one of the best teams in the country for most of the year. But the last month or so, man, they just started playing like dogs. And even Sam Bennett, who is really going to go down in the annals as one of the best players to ever play at A&M, he struggled. And he struggled in the SEC tournament. He opened in the NCAA tournament with a horrible round. But then, he barely made it to the final day, shoots 64 and finishes in the top 10. So God bless him. That's awesome. But man, that 64 would have gone great the day before, and we would have still been playing. So that's the thing, though. But it's what I would say about the coaches. Brian Corton's a nice guy. They love him over there. They wanted him to get the job. He was the assistant, and they hired him as the assistant. I would question whether Ross Bjork thinks that was a good idea today, and I don't know, and I certainly don't represent him. And it's nothing against Brian Corton, but A&M deserves a top-level, top-notch coach that's going to come in and do the same thing that Jared did on the women's side. We need to do the same thing on the men's side. And whether Brian can get the fire lit underneath him or whatever, but we need to get out there. There is no reason why A&M shouldn't be in that top 8 on both sides.
Yeah, no doubt. And, Sam Bennett will obviously be back for another year, and I'm sure going to come back with plenty of motivation coming off what was kind of a disappointing postseason run for him. Like you mentioned, the 64, boy, that would have gone a long way had he done that on round 3.
By 2 shots. So, yeah, it would have gone a long way. But, but that's golf. It is golf. And it wasn't just Sam Bennett, by the way. I mean, the whole team kind of rolled over. It was horrible. The number of black and blue numbers on that score sheet was driving me crazy. But it happens. You have a bad time where people just aren't clicking. It happened in the women's side. Hallie Cooper was one of our best players the last month of the season, and then she gets to regionals and the nationals and played terrible. She was our worst player, and yet she was one of our top players kind of going in. So that does happen, but it needs to get better, and we need to be there's some coaching that needs to be done and some recruiting that needs to be done to make sure that never happens again.
Intent, no doubt. Well, Sam, thanks so much for joining us. I don't think people could find a better preview of A&M and the NCAA tournament coming up overall. I don't think they need to go far. They just need to click on this podcast, and we'll be back next week. Brian will probably be back with us.
Well, make sure you feed him so that he's happy and you have a good time.
Yeah, absolutely. He'll come back refreshed, recharged. We'll be back again. It's coming up on a big month here. A&M's going to have official visits coming up this weekend. We'll have you covered with all of that. Had David Hicks. That's another notable one of the top players in the country in town.
And he's moved back to Houston too, right? So he's
moved back to Houston. Back at Katy Pato now, and he's got a busy weekend. Hoping to touch base with him this weekend. He's going to Texas today on Thursday, and then heading to East Lansing from Friday to Sunday for an official visit. So busy man, and then heading home on Sunday afternoon. And A&M's also got camps getting underway next week. We'll be there Wednesday through Friday, both of the next 2 days. So I'll see Brian there for sure. We'll be able to rib him a little bit. But no, Brian Scudo.
He owes you dinner though, right? Doesn't he owe you dinner?
He still owes me dinner. Yeah,
okay,
I need your help with that one.
I think Republic Steakhouse is looking good, man.
I like that idea. I can get the most expensive thing on the menu. There we go. I like that idea. But
I'm here to help.
It was your idea, not mine, and and it's on Brian's tree, right?
Well, Brian, I can't talk right now. I'm on the podcast. Sorry.
We'll be back. No worries. We'll be back to kind of break that all down over the next couple of weeks. If you like these videos, hit that subscribe button on YouTube to get notifications every time a new video comes out. You can also find us on Spotify, iTunes. Give us a 5-star review and follow that page as well to get the latest as well on when new podcasts come out. Sam, again, thanks for joining us, and I'm sure you'll be glued to that TV this weekend, kind of watching everything take place.
I'm certainly looking forward to it. And by the way, thanks to everybody for the thoughts and prayers for my wife. She's doing a lot better. And so I'm going to hopefully talk her into watching a little baseball, which is not her favorite thing to do, but hopefully we can do it. But God bless you guys. Thank you for the time. Appreciate it. Enjoyed being with you, Andrew.
Yeah, thank you. Throw something nice on the grill there. Maybe a little, kind of smoke something on the grill for sure.
I like it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, thanks again, Sam, and enjoy this weekend watching some A&M baseball and everything else going on.
We'll sure do it, buddy.
Take care, guys.
You take care.